we've got very little time left, I'm afraid, but I'm going to say we've got about 5 minutes for questions. Yeah, we're allowed 5 minutes, so we've got maybe 2 or 3 questions from the floor. Does everybody want to experience our low-carbon transport system?
David Pearson of Star Refrigeration. Thank you to all the speakers for some fascinating insight. If I can carry on the rugby analogy, I'll pick the ball up perhaps and carry it forwards. I've not heard enough about the place of heat as an energy form in what we've said, particularly today. Scotland and Ireland, just to point out, a shared resource. The Gulf Stream runs past both countries and means that we have an almost infinite quantity of low-quality heat that can be upgraded. Picking up yesterday's fantastic announcement for Ireland of the data centre that Apple will deploy in Ireland, I perhaps, sounding critical, point out that in Denmark, they will recover the heat from the data centre in Ireland. That's not currently the plan. What would the panel like to say to that?
Okay. A bit of a challenge there from the Scandinavians.
Absolutely, I think, is the answer. I mean, of course, you're right. I've been out of the country for the last 2 days, so I've only been able to read the detail of what was said yesterday in respect of the Apple. Obviously, we knew about it in respect of what they're saying. And I think there will be great innovation opportunities there. But every time you mark a progress, you actually open up a gap of what else needs to be done, and where you can see progress and great achievements. Each time we do that and we draw a line under it, we see all of the other things that we need to do as well. So I'm not going to disagree with you.
Okay, I'm good. Yep. The microphone is coming.
Hi, it's Ian Sherlaw from Fife Council. I'd like to pick up first of all on the data centre comment, because last week we received in Fife Council a planning application to build a green data centre using the power from the biomass plant in Glenrothes. It's a 65 megawatt plant, and the data centre is estimated to cost around about £40 million, and be using 9 megawatt, which is fairly substantial. On the point about cooling, we're fortunate in Fife to be very cold, wet and windy, so it's going to be an ambient cooling system. Just as background, the biomass plant was actually built on the basis of heat and power for the Tillis Russell paper plant, so it's not just getting thrown away.
But you're throwing away the heat from the data centre, that's the point.
Yeah, well, I take that point, but it is a combined heat and power centre, and I guess it might be possible to look at that.
Okay.
Could I just say, the one thing which is kind of just concerning me, I mean, there's a fantastic effort actually going on, and I really got to congratulate everybody on the way in which the public sector has actually come together on this, all the way from providing leadership, and the public sector is a huge driver in this area because it's actual spending power. I think it's just been sort of lurking at the back of my mind. We've heard it particularly in relation to the offshore wind, is that maybe we're just going to end up buying all these things in. Are we really getting the companies coming through that are inventing, designing, and making things that can be then sold abroad, perhaps as Ireland is suggesting should be done? And as a supplement to that, just to see whether or not, are we actually getting young people at school saying this is an industry we really want to be in? Is this something that's driving through into the colleges? Are we getting the message through to younger people?
Okay, I'm going to let Jackie pick that up and then Alex respond for Ireland.
What I would say is Scotland has got a lot of amazing green tech companies. Dave's is one. I think what's happened is, though, in a lot of cases, they've actually found markets abroad rather than in Scotland and in the UK. So they're actually selling their products very well overseas, but they're not actually been able to sell them in the UK. I think it's only recently that we are starting to turn in the right direction. So, for example, district heating is completely commonplace in Europe. Over here, how many schemes have we got? 2 at the most, 3 at the most. So I think ECCI is trying really hard to bring on small startups. There's lots of interesting things going on in, for example, small hydro schemes now where you can actually generate electricity and you don't need a huge amount of water to do it. But it's like everything, the whole of the public sector needs to get together, get behind it, but we need the policy support from the top to actually help us. That's my view.
Can I come in there?
Yeah.
Question was about the colleges and schools. There is very much a movement now that the colleges are engaging with schools. The Wood Commission's report, Developing Scotland's Young Workforce, development of foundation apprenticeships, and working with an education strategy to go into schools and informs youngsters about the career opportunities. I think there's a big step change actually going on at the moment in that. I think another thing for the Scottish companies is part of the offshore wind farms is the need for a supply chain plan. Skills is identified within that, and local content is identified within that. And I think that's been a real key mechanism to actually drive this forward. So I think you will see more local content, whether that's actually the turbines, but I think there's aspirations to have certainly some of the manufacturing in Scotland, but certainly in the supply chain, I think we're looking to maximise that. And you'll know yourself, you've got some really good companies in Fife who are doing very well in that field already and leading the way.
Can I just make a comment on your final point, because I think it's a good one about getting young people involved in the industry. I think it's very interesting in the Orkney context where we have the EMEC, the wave and tidal generators and the test beds there. I did a sort of a discussion session with senior pupils at one of the schools one time, and a number of them actually have gone into the renewable industry, and it's because they could see close hand on their doorstep what was actually happening and the opportunities, and also in the Orkney context to give them an opportunity to actually get back home again, because Orkney's a small place, so only 20,000 people, so most young people when they go away to university they stay away and they're looking for opportunities to get back. So I think it's when people can actually see an industry that is successful and they can see the opportunity there, because we have probably well over 200 people employed in Orkney in the renewables industry for wave and tidal in the development stages of it. So I think that's an interesting sort of aspect of it.
And in the situation in Ireland, is it
Well,
Irish kit?
in terms of the ocean energy question and were there opportunities coming forward in terms of devices and so on and spin. I mean, when I was down in Cork recently, I mentioned it in my contribution earlier, there was, in addition to the actual ceremony to launch the facility, there was an opportunity for companies, spin-offs and small companies to exhibit. And it was actually incredibly heartening, the number of initiatives there were, and small companies and just groups of very often postdocs and doctoral students spinning out ideas, very often in relation to devices that they were bringing forward and developing. So I think there are definitely great opportunities there and people who are interested, but we're at a relatively early stage in the ocean energy field, I have to say. In Ireland we're at kind of an early research phase, but even given the fact that is so, it is remarkable the amount of interest that is being taken by people who want to bring forward business ideas, particularly in the area of devices. So I would be quite hopeful, I have to say, and I would just agree with the other speakers in relation to education and the importance of taking the story into the schools and into the colleges, and I think that is actually happening increasingly in Ireland from what I see, that people will see opportunities, new opportunities, particularly in the universities, and I'd be reasonably hopeful, but we need to do more in that field as well.
Okay, I think I can take two more questions in that, right at the back there.
Well, I have the microphone, so I'll go first. Gina Hanrahan from WWF Scotland, and as you can probably tell from my accent, yet another Irish person monopolising the floor, so I apologise. Just wanted to ask the Minister a little bit about the climate change bill that's going through Parliament in Ireland at the moment. One of the really great things, I think, in Scotland has been the setting of statutory targets, and very ambitious statutory targets. They haven't always been easy to deliver. God knows we have a lot of trouble doing that, but they really are helping to focus minds and drive delivery both across the public and private sectors. I know that Ireland has taken a slightly different approach in its own climate change bill. It's chosen not to set statutory targets. And I just wanted to hear from the Minister why Ireland has taken a different approach and perhaps a little bit about what Ireland has learned from the Scottish and UK models.
Well, I'm not going to discuss legislation in any detail that has only just been introduced in the Parliament in Dublin. I'm not going to do that. I think, though, that we have shown a huge commitment to bringing forward legislation and putting it in place. I mean, targets certainly, I think, have value. I think there are many other initiatives and many other things that you can do in legislation that actually, codify in law the direction that you want to take, and that's what we're doing in our legislation. It's at an early stage, I will say, like all legislation. It's been introduced at second stage, so it's alive. The reason why I'm not, going to enter into a debate about it, if you don't mind, Chairman, is there's a matter for debate in the Irish Parliament. It's at a quite early stage of its passage through Parliament. So let's see where it ends up. A lot of interesting ideas, a lot of suggestions that maybe in some areas there ought to be targets. I think that's a debate like we can have in our Parliament, like happens in any Parliament. So let's see where it all ends up.
Hi there, Stephen Carr, Highland Council. Just got a quick question for Jackie. I think what we're finding with a lot of funding calls is maybe there's money available for 10 to 15 projects, but you get almost 300 apply. Is there, are you planning on putting the project accelerator out there again, or are you doing any work with the projects that haven't been funded? Because what you've done is you've stirred up a huge amount of appetite for small to medium-sized enterprises, local authorities, and have taken these ideas to quite an advanced level, at least, thought them through. So it's just what happens to those projects now they haven't been funded?
At the moment, there's been, so of course there was ourselves, we had the ERDF funding only for 18 months, and you're right, we generated far more interest than we ever thought we would. And at that point, we signposted people to where there was funding coming up and becoming available. But after that, there was the Local Energy Challenge Fund was announced, so they had a chance. So a lot of the projects that didn't succeed with us went into that pot. Also this year there'll be the Local Carbon Infrastructure Transition Fund, which has been run by Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands. They've just started to form, and I'm not sure where their process is going to go, but we're actively discussing with them because we're very keen that, like you say, projects don't just get dropped, because there's some amazing ideas out there that we couldn't help, but we really want to keep helping other people. So we're trying really hard to work together with them so that our pipeline of ones that weren't successful go across to them to see if they can take that up and run with it, because I don't have any more funding, unfortunately, because our funding was for 18 months.
I think that's absolutely right. It's about when those ideas are out there, making sure they don't get lost. And we're starting to blow the cobwebs off some of our transport plans from 5 to 10 years ago, because now we've got new drivers to try and push them forward. So thank you.
And I think that's it. It's making sure that, and I think Scottish Government now appreciate that there is a pipeline of fantastic projects out there, and they've learned the lessons that they need to try and keep tabs on them. So hopefully they will.
I'm going to say one last question if there's anybody out there that has a question. Are we okay? That's great. We're slightly over time, so thanks everybody for staying to the end. I think it was well worth it. Thank you to everybody for your contribution. Thank you especially to all the sponsors who's without their incredible support, this wouldn't really have been possible to fund and support some of the delegate places. Thank you to the groups who pulled the conference agenda together. That includes 70 supporters, the speakers, sponsors, and the time you've taken out of your busy jobs to come here and contribute as well. There is an environmental message. Please return your lanyards at the end. This is an environmentally friendly conference. They will be reused. Thanks again to the speakers. Been really, really excellent. I think that the thing, I'm not going to try and sum up, all I can say is that it's been really encouraging that this has been not about problems, it's not been about climate change, about should we do something, it has been about solutions, and that's a really, really big change in the last 5-10 years. And it's about if, it's not about if, but it's about when will we see these technologies coming down the line, and it's also really encouraging that it's happening in Scotland, but it's also happening in neighbouring countries as well, which gives you hope for the future. So we're going to close on that note, and also say thanks to 3PP for pulling things together. It's been a really great afternoon, and hopefully some of you will be back tomorrow for the rest of the agenda. Thank you very much.